How did I come up with this story? The idea that a soldier could use mirrors and other objects attached to their rifle to look above a trench periscope style fascinated me. My grandfather fought in World War I on the Western Front. Even though he never went to Gallipoli, I liked the idea of him being the owner of a rifle that could see over the trench. So the idea of the rifle with the mirror and my grandfather owning that rifle got me started. Nana was dead of a heart attack. She wasn't meant to die first, as she was younger than Grandpa. He didn't even know how to boil an egg because Nana did all the cooking. Mum put me in the car and we drove straight to Parata. She said I had to go because if she left me home alone, she'd be thrown into prison. Once the funeral was over, she taught Grandpa how you do it. Boil the egg in water for 4 minutes, knock off the top with a teaspoon and scoop everything out. If you want, you can slice up a piece of buttered toast and dip the bits into the egg. At home we called the bits of toast soldiers. Grandpa called the recipe Jean's egg. It was boring staying at Grandpa's because everything was old and smelly and there was nothing to do. We could only watch television for 1 hour a night because Grandpa was worried that the old black and white TV would blow up if it got too hot. But Mum thinks of everything. She'd packed my trumpet in the boot and reckoned I had plenty of practice to do. And Grandpa might teach me some of his bugle calls. Big deal. But my lips got sore after half an hour. And Grandpa just sat in his armchair smoking his pipe and telling boring stories about Nana. He never told stories about Nana when she was alive. Mum said I should help Grandpa clean out the shed. Give him something to do, she was. He went out of the room to get more tobacco for his pipe. Grandpa's shed was full of junk. There was an old roof rack, some rusty metal scissor things that Grandpa had used for cutting wool off sheep when he was a farmer, and a big old freezer where Nana used to keep a beast. I'd always been too scared to open it and see what the beast looked like. Behind the freezer was a rifle. It was an old .303 covered in dust with a mirror attached to the bayonet at the top. Did you shoot that in the war, Grandpa? At school when we said the war, we meant the Second World War. We'd divide into Tommies, Yanks, Japs and Nazis and pretend to kill each other. But when you said the war to Grandpa, it was always the First World War. Bloody Aussies said the mirror on the bayonet was their invention, but it was one of ours, said Grandpa. This bloke Bill at Gallipoli came up with the idea. Grandpa picked up the rifle and crouched behind the freezer, then slowly raised his head. If you lifted your head above the trench to look for Turks, you risked it getting blown to smithereens. He crouched down again, then poked up the rifle. But this way you got a decent view of just what Johnny Turk was up to. Suddenly Grandpa sprang up and pretended to shoot the rifle. And then you could knock his block off. Bang! I took a turn. I crouched down behind the freezer and held up the rifle. Sure enough, I could see Grandpa in the mirror. Did you kill any Turks with it? Grandpa didn't say anything. He grabbed an old wooden spinning wheel that belonged to Nana. One good thing about Nana dying was that she wouldn't send me those awful, stinky homespun wool jerseys anymore. Mum made me wear the smelly things every time we visited Parata. Give us a hand with this, he said. We wiped the dust off the spinning wheel and put it outside in the sun. We were only 40 yards from the Turks. We could hear them jabbering away. Sometimes they'd sing. At night you could even hear them fart. Serious? Deadly. There was a Turkish bloke who played this instrument. It was like a guitar, and they'd all sing along. Oh, God, it was beautiful. Sad, but beautiful. Grandpa smiled. Sounds stupid, but he reminded me of old Blackie Paiwai. He'd get tanked up on home brew outside the Parata Settlers Hall, then bring out his banjo and play with our band. That Turkish guy was a good bloke too. How did you meet him? Take him prisoner? Don't be bloody stupid, said Grandpa. During the Battle of Sari Bar, there were dead bodies everywhere. It stunk to blazes because the corpses were starting to rot. The generals agreed to a truce so both sides could recover their dead. Tiny Olsen and I started to clear the bodies away, and we got talking to a few Turks. We weren't meant to, but bugger it. The generals were hardly going to risk marching all the way out to no man's land to arrest us. We gave them some tobacco, and they gave us some olives and bread. It tasted much better in that hot Gallipoli sun than our dried tucker. Then one of the Turks spotted the bugle strapped on my back. You'll play bugle? I nodded and he smiled. You'll play very good. So I told him about my trumpet and the dance band in the Settlers Hall and Blackie Paiwai's banjo. Then I mimed playing the Turkish guitar thing that I'd heard at night, and he grinned from ear to ear. Balama, he said. Me play balama. I told him his balama sounded beautiful, and he said, beautiful music protect us in battle. And I thought of the song, It's a Long Way to Tipperary, which we whistled on the march, and I thought of Abide With Me, which we sang at soldiers' funerals. And I thought of the beautiful hymn that I'd heard the Maoris sing a few nights back, just before they raided a Turkish trench and slit the throats of every single Abdul inside from ear to ear. I said, "Beautiful music protects us too." I followed Grandpa back into the shed. "Did you ever see that Turk again?" Grandpa pointed at the mirror on his rifle. "Yep, through that." After the truce was over, Sergeant Lambert ordered me to raise my rifle up over the trench to see if any Abduls had their heads above the parapet. The only Turkish head I could see belonged to my friend who played the balama. "You shot him!" Grandpa slowly wiped his rifle with a cloth. "I was about to knock his block off, but I reckoned that if I did, there'd be nothing to listen to at night. So I told Lambert that I couldn't see a thing. No wonder I never made it to corporal." "So the music did protect him?" Grandpa smiled. "I suppose it did." When the shed was cleared, Grandpa let me play with his rifle. "That stupid gun," Mum said when she saw me killing Japs on the lawn. "Is he boring you silly with stories about all the Turks he killed with it?" I looked over at Grandpa. He winked. "Yep." I went inside and opened my music book. I decided I'd learn It's a Long Way to Tipperary. Then tomorrow, after Grandpa had cooked us Jean's egg and soldiers for breakfast, I could play it to him and he could whistle along. It might stop him talking about Nana.